Hello, hello, hello. Wow. If you want any more reasons to question the sanity of Roger Waters, all you've got to do is read the recent interview with said musician in the Rolling Stone. James Ball interviewed Mr. Waters, ex of the Pink Floyd, and it was published today on the 4th of October. And boy, does it paint a picture of derangement. There's a lot to unpack. I mean, he goes through his usual thing, anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian, blames, Israel and American and British Jews for the situation. And that sounds like anti-Semitism to me, but then bemoans the fact that everyone calls him anti-Semite, even though he does put the Star of David onto images of pigs in his live show. I'm just saying. And so you got that going on. And then in the interview, he also reckons that in Syria, Assad's chemical attacks on his own people were staged. That's an interesting take, isn't it? That's an interesting take. That's without. He's on a Ukraine hit list. I think it's a far right group that may have waggled there. It's not Zelensky, mind you. It would be the only hit that Roger would have in Ukraine, wouldn't it? Yeah. So it's a very interesting. He also accuses the Syrian rescue group, the White Helmets, of being fake, even though all the evidence is to the contrary. It's a fascinating interview of somebody who's quite deranged. And if you want to hear, there's also an audio version of the interview that you can hear on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you go to the link, I'll include the link to the interview in this video. But again, it's that trope that the West is the evildoers and that everyone else, Russia, China, can't help themselves because they're reacting to the West. It's an interesting narrative. There's lots of bad things that US, UK have done. But, you're telling me Assad's innocent? Really? Again, you just read this stuff. And again, he goes on a lot about Western propaganda. And you think that, he's been emailing Julian Assange a little bit too much. I'm so glad that I sold my Roger Waters records. But do give it a look. Again, he blames NATO. It's all NATO's fault that Putin invaded Ukraine. Of course it is. It's all NATO's fault. And there's this certain, he's obsessed with history. But his history is again a little bit skewed. Very, 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 very strange. It's again, he doesn't accept the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, which is interesting. He compares to Israel, to South Africa under apartheid. It's just the usual stuff. He doesn't come across particularly well in it. But again, I think what you get here is a good indicator of what happens when somebody's got so much money and has surrounded themselves with so many yes men that they convince themselves that all this propaganda is real. I mean, he's an American citizen now, so I don't think he's got any right to criticise the UK. I don't know if he's got any right to criticise the US, seeing as he's a US citizen now. It's his problem. But I like the line at the end. The writer James Ball ends the interview by saying, because they talk about it like having a chat in a bar. That's how they're framing it. That's how Roger Waters. But again, the writer says he shouts over me a lot and waves his fist. So it's one of those bars where the friendly drunks turned a bit violent. But yeah, the writer James Ball ends the piece with, Roger Waters and I have managed to avoid having a bar fight, but as I leave, I know one thing for sure: I really need a drink. It's like, oh dear. And again, Waters is this kind of almost antiquated leftist. It's kind of come back round again. You thought with this stuff. I remember this kind of rhetoric being pushed in the 70s and 80s, and it faded away for a bit in the 90s and early 2000s, but it seems to have come round again. It's gained popularity, and again, you'd think, after 9/11 and things like that they might have tempered their rhetoric down a bit, but they haven't. But it's it's a very interesting worldview. I certainly don't think some of the things he says. I don't think you can't agree with the whole Syria thing. He's got that completely wrong. And again, Ukraine, they were invaded. If Ukraine looks to the west instead of the east, then that's their lookout. They want to modernise, don't they? The EU, again, I'm not a fan of the EU. Have something that those poorer Eastern European countries, want to sign up for. They see it as a fragment of hope after being part of that Soviet regime that left them poor and without opportunity. So yeah, they see it as an opportunity. But yeah, it's all NATO's fault. And Assad's a good guy, really. But he doesn't come across as a man who actually wants peace. This is the thing. He says that he does, and he mentions, he always mentions the war and and his father dying in the war. Yeah. Even though it was the Germans that killed him, it's England's fault for sending him. Yeah. Yeah, he's an odd one. But yeah, that's what happens when you're 79, a multi-millionaire, and you've got nobody to say, Rog, this is a bad look. So yeah, it just doubled down on everything we've seen before, and it's quite an unusual take. I think it's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre, and and if you want to go and hear him play that hit, you're giving your money to someone who's clearly deluded. Go and, like I say, read this interview, and I think you'll be aghast, unless you totally sign up for this particular narrative. If you're pro Assange and all those people, you're going to love it. But for the rest of us who've got some sense, who sees the world in shades of grey rather than black and white, like Waters does, everyone, we all have our areas of blame. And no one's truly innocent in any of this. But yeah, he's got a peculiar take. Go and check it out. Go and check it out. Like I said, I will put the link in the description for you to check that out. So yeah, thank you for watching. My name is Darren Lock. I've been talking about Roger Waters and this here Rolling Stone article. Here we go. Here it is, which is headed on. I'm on a Ukrainian kill list, which is kind of catchy. So yeah, go read it. I haven't listened to the audio version of it. That might be, I don't know if that's the full interview. That might be interesting. But yeah, this has been edited for time. So yeah, go and check that out.